This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of RaceSpot TV Primetime here on the iRacing Esports Network. Of course, for this season it has been the iRacing Grand Touring Cup that's featured on this weekly slot here on RaceSpot TV. I'm Connery Maddock, and joining me on the commentary will be the one, the only Will Vincent. Round number 7 at Road Atlanta here, Will, and it's not the long Road Atlanta circuit, it is the short layout here, so absolutely fantastic for club level racing with a little underpowered cars like we have here today. But it's certainly a track that's suitable for the action that we tend to have in this series.
It is the itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow lined bikini Road Atlanta. Absolutely love this layout, actually, Connery. It leads itself to some really close racing. And before actually we went on air, we were talking about actually how many braking zones really there is in this track. And the hardest one's turn 3 and into the chicane.
Yeah, absolutely. Those will be the places where you'll see drivers perhaps being able to make moves, but just like the long layout here of Road Atlanta, the short layout still is a little bit of a draft fest, so you can expect to see drivers keep themselves close together and be able to get into a position to make moves down into the chicane or down into turn 1. But we do have the qualifying session that's just about to get itself over and done with. That clock ticks down to 0. The grid is completely set here for this evening's race, and the grid looks a little bit like this. Stefan Overgaard will take pole position in your Ford Mustangs from Roger Gregory, who lines up on the front row with him. Drone Schilderlink there down in P3 with P4 on the grid going to Michael Bortel, and Michael Boleau will round out your Ford Mustang field here today. Then you look at your VW Jettas, Jake Johansson there, pole position for him. Absolutely fantastic stuff, almost a half a second there ahead of his closest competitor of Robert Lundgren. Then you have Jason Gardner and Constant Nikari bringing things down to P4 on the grid. Johnny Bell and Simon Burtonshaw will round out the remainder of your VW Jetta field here today. And then you get to cycle yourself all the way down to your 12-car Solstice field. Rick Tarvin takes pole position in that one from Melnaritz, who starts himself in P2. George Matuszinski starts in P3 with Daniel Ariel Munoz in P4. P5 will go to Chris Pence with P6 on the grid, going to Alan McCain. David Frederick and Tim Stratman will be starting a little bit further behind, with the rest of your field looking like this. It's Vitra, you've got Sen Demel, you've got Veed, and you got Juan Carlos Fernandez rounding out your entire field here today. So in just a couple of moments' time, you'll see those cars roll up for one full pace lap here of the Road Atlanta short course. 23 cars here going to be taking the race start, and well, it's going to be a while before we get ourselves going here, Will, but with the bumper Solstice field once again, well, we might just get bumper-to-bumper action.
Yeah, and it's also good that we've got a few more Ford Mustangs here today. So we've got 5 Mustangs in your field, and that's going to make for an interesting battle. The thing about this racetrack as well here today, Connery, you will see lap traffic. This track is one of the Racebot.TV bingo cards. I always talk about this track. You basically need to accept the fact you will lose time in traffic, especially through turns 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. And really, it's going to be a case of who has got the most patience in your field here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming through that SS section, it's so common, even in the, well, especially in the much faster forms of racing that you get to see at Road Atlanta. Just think about the Petit Le Mans. Coming through those S's, if you get stuck behind a slower car, it is complete and utter hell for the faster car. You lose so much time coming through there. And, well, even though this is a short event, you're quite right. We might just get to see lap traffic becoming a pretty big factor in terms of your Mustangs and your VW Jettas here today. So just getting ready to start our 40-minute event here. No scheduled pit stops in this series, of course. It is a straight-up fight from now all the way to the end for all three classes here today. Porsche Cup car, pace car, down on towards the pit lane. Field under the control of Stefan Overgaard. He nails it through the final corner. Gets a big old jump over the rest of the Ford Mustang field. We're green flag racing here at Road Atlanta. Short, everyone single file in your Ford Mustang fields. Give us a little bit of time to cycle things back to your VW Jettas. Battle for P3 down into turn 1. Jason Gardner on the outside. Dakari trying to wrestle the inside line away as they start the drag race, then up the hill towards this very blind turn 3. Get on the anchors there. Dakari not feeling confident enough to go down the inside at such a treacherous corner. Single file for your VW Jettas. Having a look back to your Solstice's field, well, we've had a change for the race lead there. Malnaritz will now lead from Rick Taven, and we see Daniel Ariel Munoz also gaining a position up into P3.
Yeah, it has. Good start by all the drivers, surviving the first couple of corners here at Road Atlanta. Actually, I say that, I'm lying. Simon Burstenshaw, number 6 car, is at the very rear of the field. He had one non-starter as well, one Carlos Fernandez, as we've got a bit of a slow car, a very slow car actually then, on the exit of the chicane. That is the number 22 machine, Michael Bolio, and I think he's got a slowdown penalty there, Connery.
Yeah, he might have just got himself one of those, and it actually does result in him having to battle through the VW Jetta field for position. He got a bit loose coming through the first apex of the chicane. That spat him out onto the grass for the second, so it wasn't a slowdown penalty. It was just the fact he had a little bit of an instant down at that chicane that's now put himself in this situation where he now has to start to fight through slower traffic on the second lap of this race, which is not ideal by any means, but he certainly isn't alone because of the pit lane starter that we had of Simon Burtonshaw. He's currently having to deal with the Solstice field going side by side in front of him down the S's. That's what I mean when traffic in the S's is going to spell the end to any quick lap time, I should say. But Burtonshaw will be able to make quick work of the back half of this Ford Mustang field, not Ford Mustang, the Solstice field on the way down towards the chicane. We do have side by side between Chris Pence and Alan McCain. That's the 7 and the 9 in the Solstice field on the way down to the chicane. McCain on the outside there for that Team Bushing Racing car. Becomes the inside for the second apex. Bit of a punt there. Chris Pence almost loses control. Very well done to keep hold of that car, but it looks like there's terminal damage. The tracking's completely and utterly out as he hits the inside of the bridge.
Yep, replay up for you then of Pence in towards the chicane. 10A, 10B it is, of course, on the standard layout. Two cars come together there, and you can see the Ford Mustang going through as well. The huge ass car, 4 wide actually, at one point, Connery there. You don't often see 4 wide at Road Atlanta, but Chris Pence brings that wounded race car on towards pit road. It's also worth noting, by the way, that you and I both missed this. This is a 40-minute race compared to the 25-minute races that we normally have at FMP.
Yep, absolutely. It will actually be the final 40 race week for the entire season. So round 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 will all return to your normal 25 minutes here. So the 40 gives drivers perhaps a little bit of time to try and pick their way through and all make all their moves. What have you seen, Well?
Yeah, this battle for P3, P4 in your Volkswagen Jetta field. It is Constant Akari door banging there with Jason Gardner. Gardner's gone off though down at turn at number 1. He's pushed himself wide, so he has now lost that 3rd position out of the podium spots. But that was a little bit of door banging, very close racing in towards turn number 1. But then Gardner just on the outside line pushes wide. He misses his apex into the corner, and consequently that number 21 car is now down in 4th place. And luckily for him, he's got a VW, actually no, he's got a Ford Mustang between himself and Johnny Bell, who runs 5th place in class.
There goes the Mustang on the way down to the chicane, and that turn 1 is particularly tricky, and Jason Lingard did find that one out the hard way, and is finding traffic pretty hard as well as he comes out of the chicane, so that's an easy position gained there for Johnny Bell. Gardner a little bit tentative about what to do with the Ford Mustang in front of him, just slammed on the anchors and decided to back out. Meanwhile, that Mustang's having a bit of a problem keeping their car on the grey stuff, but they were successful in doing so, coming down the pit straight that time. I was fearing they were about to hit the pit wall, but we might be having the situation here, Will, where the slower drivers of the faster class aren't actually all that much quicker, if at all faster, than the class below them.
Yeah, and we talked about this also before we went on air. You kind of roll out the throttle more than braking at this track. And actually, we saw, as we're on board with Robert Lundgren right now, he's got himself Jake Johansson ahead, and Johansson's actually in the tow right now of your 3rd place driver in the Mustang field. Through turn number 5 here, Connery, they don't actually get onto the brakes, they just roll through the corner. So we talk about momentum so often this series, but I think momentum is here more important than any track we've been to this season.
Yeah, if you get caught offline coming through there, it's very, very difficult to try and recover that. It's the same coming through the S's. Your line has to be absolutely perfect coming through there if you're going to have any sort of competitive lap time. Just having a look to see the battles in the Jetta field, because they're sort of getting in the mix with some of the slower Mustangs here, which we did see happen actually at Laguna Seca. So this isn't a foreign concept to this series, with having some of the Jettas be a little bit quicker than some of the Ford Mustangs. I would have thought the Mustangs would be a little bit better in terms of the lap delta at this track, because of the amount of time that you are spending on 100% throttle. As Schiederink there, 20, slides it coming through turn 5 and up to towards turn 6, and that's a heavy impact with the concrete wall on the inside there. That engine's gone. Yeah, engine's gone boom boom is the only way I can say that one. Into, let's get the replay, shall we? Slides that car around, and thankfully a camera angle here is actually pretty good. Hits the concrete barrier. There are a lot of concrete barriers at this track, especially on this part, the club layout, Connery. So if you are going to hit the wall, you are going to do a lot of damage. And of course, all these cars are front engined here. And yeah, that car's toast. He's going to have to come on towards pit road and needs a fast repair. Yeah, absolutely. Gonna have to take that one on a chin. But we have had just a little bit of a swap, perhaps, for the race lead, or at least a little bit of a battle for the race lead in your VW Jetta field. That's Jake Johansson trying to defend now from Robert Lundgren. So these guys haven't swapped for position just yet, but Lundgren did have a little bit of a look at it coming through the first sector, very much within the slipstream here, coming up through turn 5 and 6, and able to bring himself all the way up towards that rear bumper. They have to be careful because there's a Mustang going to be trying to hit their way through as they try to duel down towards the chicane. The Mustang's going to be patient here. Johansson going to be on the inside, parks it in the middle of the circuit for the first apex, clips that one absolutely perfectly, able to put up the defense through the second as well. So no line really that Lundgren could have taken through there that would have given him the ultimate advantage. And now that Mustang's patience is going to be tested coming through this final corner. He doesn't want to disrupt this battle at all, but still needs to get his way through on these guys. But being very patient with the race leaders in the VW Jettas, which is what we like to see, allowing them to battle, but it might be a while before that Mustang can get past. Yeah, and it's worth noting as well that this number 17 car, Michael Bortle, has got 1,337 iRacing, which is
just below the starting iRacing. So when you join iRacing, you don't actually see your iRacing when you're in rookie class. You do once you emerge into D class. And 1350 is starting point and just ahead. That's Robert Lundgren getting very sideways there as they work themselves through turn number 5. And well, now Bortle has to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, that's not the first driver that we've seen actually have trouble coming through turn 5 and 6. It's more been the Mustang that I've been seeing getting the back end stepped out through there. But that time it was Lundgren going very wide on entry, just clipping the grass with 2 tires on that outside. Made the car very unstable. Very well done to be able to hold on to that car and not spin it all the way around. So he will maintain P2, although he has lost about 2 seconds to your VW Jetta race leader here. So thanks to the race being 40 minutes here, well, he does have time to be able to make up the gap here, but it is going to require a lot of work. But having a look back to your Solstice field, they have still stuck together relatively closely for around about P1 through 4 here. There's a Mustang involved. Your Mustang leader, Stefan Overgaard, tries to squeeze his way through on Matuszynski side by side through the final corner. That's Overgaard heading his way through. He has about an 11-second advantage, 12-second advantage already over the person in P2 in your Mustang class. So Overgaard seeming to run away with it almost every week that we get to see here on the iRacing Esports Network. Of course, highest iRating driver in this entire field. You should perhaps expect such things from him if the closest closest in terms of iRating in that entire field will then be number 11 in the field. It's quite reasonable that he'll be dominant here, but his job is also not to disrupt any of the battles, or at least mitigate as much of the damage as possible.
Yeah, as we're on board with Zen Demel in the Dick Insider huge ass machine as they exit turn 5, work onto the back straightaway. Good to see, by the way, team owner for Team Huge Ass, David Haynes, was at Indianapolis Motor Speedway taking part in an endurance race, actually, over 2 days. The car wasn't working the second one, so he was able to get a ride in another machine. But Sven Demel on board of him, as we say, exit of that final corner. And this is the thing, Connery, because it's a short track. We're, 15 minutes into this race, and already we are seeing lapping going on. And actually, Jake Johansson has just been passed by the Ford Mustang. I was going to say this earlier. I'll say it now. This is the best thing that Johansson can do, because now he can sit in the toe of that number 17 Ford Mustang down the straightaways here and use that to try and pull out a bit more of a gap over Robert Lundgren.
Yeah, use it to try and break away and break the toe all the way back to the driver in P2, Robert Lundgren. He still is feeling the tail end of things here, but if you can make it look a little bit more secure, then that will be absolutely beneficial to Johansson's race. Just having a look at P3 in your Solstices, though, because here comes Sven Demel once again. Matuszynski going to have to be on the defensive into the chicane, and, well, he's got the outside line for the first apex, but Sven Demel not going to commit down the inside just yet. He has plenty of time left in this race to be able to make this move stick, and he has to be careful as well. If he goes side by side with Matuszynski for a bit too long here in trying to complete the pass, then your top 2 drivers in your Solstice field will start to get away. So he needs to get this one over and done with relatively quickly, but he can't do it riskily.
Yeah, and there's some front-end damage to the number 4 cars. Ren Demos will look there from the rear of Matuszynski as they head themselves now in towards turn number 3. I just worry about the sponsor name on the front of that number 4 car getting a little bit crumpled up and people wouldn't get the right meaning of it. But Matuszynski, playing a defensive game right now, but is going to lose a little bit of time to number 8 car just ahead of him, of David Molensic in the second position on track, because Matuszynski's been basically taking the defensive line, and actually now Sven Demel again gets a good run out of turn 5 in towards the chicane. Let's have a look from up above, and again he pulls back into line.
Yeah, it seems like whatever damage he has to the front end, it might just be engine related, it might just be the cosmetic bodywork that's all torn up, but he has a good run coming on the exit. The chicane is side by side ahead of him as well, so 2 by 2 coming through the final corner. Sven Demmel's able to gain the position, and so does Mel Naritz for your race lead. So a little bit of a swap around inside your top 4 for pretty much everyone in Solstice field, and now Sven Demmel will look to give chase to your top 2 drivers and make this a 3-horse race, maybe even perhaps a 4-horse race if Matuszinski's able to get in on the action as well.
I remember when I was a kid, we had to do a school play, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and all I got in my head now is here comes the race cars 2 by 2 in towards turn at number 1. We go back to live pictures, but you're right, we've now got 4 of your Solstices separated by a total of 8 tenths per second, and Sven Demmel just powered his way through then. They went 4 wide again here at Road Atlanta. You shouldn't be going 4 wide at this racetrack, Connery.
You shouldn't, but that won't stop drivers from doing so. Matuszinski gets the pass done over Rick Tarvin there into the chicane. Sven Demmel will continue his attack over your Solstice race leader as well of Mel Naritz, but Demmel won't be able to make the pass here coming through the final turn. He can set up for a run into turn 1 though. A little bit of a wider line taking will give him a little bit more exit speed. Here comes the block then down to turn 1 for Mel Naritz. He stays very close to the inside. Sven Demmel trying to take as much track entry as possible. Power move around the outside for Demmel. He might have this one complete up towards turn 3, and he does. There's a brilliant move there for Demmel.
Yep, that's going to be in the iRacing top 10 there. Sven Demmel looking to the outside in towards turn 1. Gets an absolutely fantastic run. That's partially because the number 8 car did get a little bit curb hoppy in towards that first corner. But Sven Demmel able now to go from 4th place to 1st in class in 3 laps. Phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant performance indeed, and he's already stretching out a gap in his situation up to 8 tenths of a second on the way down to the chicane. So it looks like if that trend continues, then the rest of these drivers will just have to pick up the pieces, but Demmel goes a little bit wide coming through the final part of the chicane there. Gets a little bit of grass on his tires, but as long as he doesn't hit the barriers, it seems to be relatively okay. He's going to lose a little bit of speed here coming down the pit straight thanks to the compromised run through the final corner as well. So keeps Mel Naritz in contention here, keeps him in the slipstream, but Mel Naritz, a bit of a mistake there coming through turn 1, might put him under threat from Matuszinski. Gets a very good launch off the corner, does Matuszinski. Looks to the inside line coming through turn 3. This isn't usually a place where you can make passes, and that's exactly the reason why Mel Naritz into the tire barriers, and that is absolutely catastrophic for that driver's race.
It is. Getting a replay from up above then from Mel Naritz in towards turn number 3. And you can see inside line being taken. The 2 do make contact. The number 18 does get turned around, and actually there's contact behind as well. So 2 bits of contact there in towards turn number 3. And you're right, Connery, it is the narrowest place on the racetrack for a reason. Here's a replay on board with Matuszinski, and you can see there's the first incident, and then you can see the second, a little bit of contact with Rick Tarvin in the number 5 car as well. Things unraveled all of a sudden then in your Pontiac Solstice field.
Yeah, it does seem to have done that now. Sven Demmel actually has a 6-second advantage over the rest of the field, but P2 is still not sorted, though. There are still drivers in contention for this one. Matuszinski having to defend now from Tarvin. So Tarvin, just a couple laps ago, he got cycled to the back of the pack, and now he's battling for P2 here, inside line at turn 3. That's how you make a pass through there, Matuszinski. And Matuszinski had nothing to do, nothing to be able to try and defend that once he gets caught very wide on the outside.
Yeah, he does. As we're on board with Matuszinski again, then as they work themselves now through turn number 5, long sweeping right-hander. By the way, Sven Demmel, 8-second lead in 3 laps in class.
Yeah, he was held by an incident, but that is still very impressive considering he had considering the pace he had while he was trying to battle through all of those cars as well. So Maybe a bit of a poor qualifying there for Sven Zemmel, but he's definitely able to make up for it, as in this Solstice battle there is now a Mustang involved in that. That's Michael Ball trying to head his way through. Around the outside he goes, around the final corner. If you're wondering about the battles in any of the other fields there, well, none of them are as close as the battling that we've seen in the Solstices. Jake Johansson currently leads the Jettas by about 2.7 seconds, and Overgaard by a country mile over the rest of the Mustang field, as Johansson actually tries to make his way through on this P2 battle in the Solstices. So now your sort of leading cars in each class are now starting to get involved with the traffic once again. It is splitting up the remaining battles that we have here in the Solstices, but hopefully the damage is again limited.
Yeah, it is, but we need to pay a little bit of attention to Stefan Overgaard here. He is an absolute fire in that number 1 car. And Connery, I hope you're going to agree here. Let's do a little bit of Racebook TV fan immersion, shall we, with Stefan Overgaard.
Let's go for it. These are the sounds of that Mustang. That was just a lap on board there with your overall race leader of Stefan Overgaard. Absolutely dominant performance at the front of the Ford Mustang field, but it seems to be the Solstices is where all the action is at right now, because while we were on board with him, a 3-car train has developed for P3 here. Matuszynski at the head of this one, being chased by Daniel Ariel Munoz now, heading away through the final corner. Alan McCain is also involved in this one in that Team Bushink Racing car. Constant Nakari, though, heading his way through. That's the P3 runner in the Jetta as he goes so deep. Oh, almost runs into the side of Munoz there, coming through turn 1. That might give the opportunity now for McCain to be able to pull off a pass here on the way up towards turn 3. Careful through here, boys, but they are very, very competent in terms of their racecraft through there, giving each other a lot of space. Munoz will be very thankful for that one, but it has resulted in both of these cars now losing a good second or so to Matuszynski ahead.
Yeah, we talk about momentum at this racetrack, Connery, and I think we're seeing it here today. We saw the fact that Sven Demmer was able to get 8 seconds in 3 laps because they were all battling behind. We go looking up above here. Alan McKay has got the inside line 3 wide again. Here, I feel like doing a Tetris for Jeff, but it's just something a little bit different every time they go 3 wide here or 4 wide here at Road Atlanta. But Alan McCain up into 4th place there, makes the move over Munoz down at the chicane.
Yeah, your overall race leader is also trying to work their way through on this one, but Overgaard's hopefully going to be in no rush here. He's on about 30 seconds, the advantage between himself and P2 in his class, so he can afford to maybe take this one a little bit more carefully, but does decide to head his way through before turn 1 arrives, so Alan McCain and Munoz can perhaps continue on this fight. Maybe not coming through the S's here, but if Munoz gets a good run through 5 and 6, then it might put him in contention to be able to make something happen down into the chicane. But I have to feel at this point he's losing a little bit too much time, especially as he has a big slide coming through turn 5, but still somehow is able to get a pretty decent run off of this one. So the draft is really saving him right now and able to keep him within, I wouldn't say within striking distance, but with an opportunity. If he works at it a couple of laps, he'll be there and able to make the move. We're
within the same zip code. We are in Atlanta after all. Of course, I've been at this racetrack, Connery, and one of the things that is worth noting is actually the elevations. You don't really see it on a TV camera. I had the opportunity to do this racetrack on a golf cart, I did almost fling out a driver as we worked through the S's as fast as the golf cart would actually go. Also then got stopped by the clerk of the course at the top of the hill, who was like, why are you on a golf cart when it's a track walk? And very luckily I had my walking stick on me that day, so they let me through. But this track, you know, it's got so much elevation change on it. I do also want to say, the camera angles you see today, they're not the same as we normally have. We haven't got the variety, unfortunately. And part of the reason why, Connery, is I think that I probably broadcast a race from the short layout once every 18 months.
It feels like it's been featured a couple of times on things like 2K World Cup and Monday Night Skippies.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the only two series that I remember broadcasting a race from this track. So it's not one that we get to see all that often. So, but it's you know, variety is the spice of life, and I hope that we get to see sort of more underutilized tracks come into some of the series, because if you're unaware of how things work in iRacing in terms of the tracks being picked, it's usually the community that get to vote on which tracks get used on any particular season, and they try to organize between themselves to try and get a decent variety season on season. But there are still a lot of tracks that don't really get a lot of sort of time on any of the series on iRacing. Things like the one that comes to mind, which I've never ever raced a race on and I've never broadcasted a race on, is the road course at Fontana Auto Club.
Yeah.
I've never done a race there. I've never broadcasted a race there.
I've done one in my 8 years of commentary and directing these days. I've done one race there. Kansas has an infield as well, which is fantastic, actually. They actually ran an IMSA race there, I think about 5 years ago, and that was entertaining. But things like, I'd love to see like Alton Park and these type of cars. It'd be absolutely amazing. Scuba, of course. We saw Scuba a couple of seasons ago in Friday Night Prime Time. Absolutely loved that track. And it does really work for these slower cars, because again, momentum's a big thing here. And to kind of go a little bit beyond the series, this is a reason why they put these cars as a D-Class car, because of the fact that it encourages drivers, both this and the Skip Barber, to understand throttle control, brake control, all these fundamentals that if you were to just jump straight into an IndyCar, Formula One car, for example, you just don't get the fundamentals unless you've done one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolutely fantastic place to try and learn the basics of how GT-style cars, I will say, handle before you go up to things like the GT3 class. You have the GTEs as well, which kind of the quote-unquote top tier of the GT racing that we have here in iRacing. Of course, you have offshoots of that, like the Porsche Cup cars as well, which get used in the iRacing World Championship, the Porsche Esports Super Cup that we do here on iRacing. But just talking of other tracks, actually, that I'd love to see get used, I was just thinking about a couple of others. One of the ones that comes to mind is actually all the different club layouts at Silverstone.
Yeah.
I would love to see used, because you do have a good variety of racing that actually does get used in the real world. You have the national circuit, for example, which can be pretty fun in underpowered cars, it has to be said. And then you have things at, for example, Suzuka. If you have a look at the sort of the East Circuit, the West Circuit with the chicane and whatever, just these alternate layouts that I really want to see used more, just to see how the racing will be at them.
Yeah, I love the one that Suzuka basically turn one, turn two, S's turn right, chicane, bish, bash, bosh, done. Actually, the one that I don't see as often as I should do, as you're just seeing there, some lapping traffic. That's the number 21 car of Jason Gardner, assumedly no relation to Tony Gardner, of course, president of iRacing, because he's from Carolina. Indy Road Course. Don't see many races at the Indy Road Course.
Well, not anymore, because I believe you used to see it around a lot more when there weren't really all that many road circuits on iRacing, because, of course, iRacing being an American company and with a partnership with NASCAR and everything like that, they preferred to get everything on the oval side done first. or at least that was a priority. But now they have pretty much everything done. They can, go a lot more into other things. But yeah, the Indy road course I would like to see. But the thing is, we don't have the newer version of that, I don't believe.
No, we don't. Yeah, we've got the original one, which is it's actually the second generation. I have to be careful when I say that, because the first generation, the final complex was actually 2 hairpins, whereas now it's 2 90-degree corners towards the end of the lap, at the start of the lap, using the MotoGP layout. Of course, we've got Barcelona coming up our way. And yeah, we talked about NASCAR, of course. We're just turning our attention over to your race leader, Stefan Overgaard. But how great was it yesterday? NBC Sports Network, NASCAR America, some of the top drivers in the eNASCAR Peak Entry Series, powered by iRacing, and Parker Klingerman.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't able to watch it through normal means here in the UK. Let's just say that one. But it's, from what I was able to catch of it, and of course the replay of it is up on the NBCSN YouTube channel. I think it was an absolutely great showcase of the racing that we do have in sim racing, just in general. And the guys, the Peak Entry Series guys, did an absolutely fantastic job of showing what they're made of, giving us a bit of a good show, especially with that finish side by side out the final corner and across the line. That's probably the best sort of action that we could ask for a sort of US national television debut, that is for sure. But one thing that struck me as well is the fact that, of course, NBCSN were able to use a lot of their assets and a lot of their sort of production. So because it's quite rare, like outside of a LAN event in sim racing, to actually have studio segments and things like that. So that's one thing I really, really picked up on, and I hope that is the general trajectory in which we're going, so we're able to do that on a much, much more regular basis.
Yeah, and the hope is to do stuff every month. And again, Hugo and I were doing the camera work behind the scenes, a very sweaty night, one of the hottest nights in the history of Her Majesty's United Kingdom. But side by side, by the way, this is going on, for P number 5 and 6. We've got the car spinning around. That is Munoz then taking, he's hit the wall there. Down, he's hit that concrete barrier, he's going to hit that hard. That is likely going to be some side suspension damage to that car. Here's a replay on board of Munoz as they head themselves through turn number 3. So we have got some action to talk about here, and yet Munoz losing that car. I always say, after Mosport, Canadian Tires Motorsport Park, Conway, the grass here seems to be slicker than any other track that I know.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case. I'm just seeing a lot of smoke on circuit right now, and that is because Robert Lundgren blew his engine from P2 in your VW Jetta field. I have to see exactly where he's done this one, and it's a bit of a slide coming through 5 and 6, actually. The very long right-hander that sort of cuts out the vast majority of the long circuit. Gets out very wide, 2 tires in the grass, and spins in towards that concrete barrier. Heavy front impact, exactly where the engine is in these Jettas, and that causes a little bit of a smoke party as he tries to find pit lane, but he is back out there thanks to the fast repair. Yep,
my wife now owns a Volkswagen. I really hope that she never does that in her car, because otherwise I'm going to have a pretty hefty insurance bill coming in at some point. But the points I wanted to make about the NBCSN broadcast, first of all, big props to NBCSN for actually making the video both on YouTube and on the NBC Sports website available to all, because normally there's geographical restrictions in terms of stuff on their website, but it's really good to actually see them appreciate the fact those people far outside the United States that wanted to watch that. Second thing, Conway, and this is a plus for us, NBC, of course, now owns Sky Sports. They already have a crossover, because they show an hour or two of Sky Sports news, especially when it's in Premier League stuff. So you never know. Maybe this could be the start for us getting something going on in Sky Sports.
I mean, if they want to put the Porsche Esports Super Cup on some random Sky channel, Sky Sports, maybe Sky Sports, a Sky Sports channel that they're not actually actively using at that time, are just like having reruns of certain other traditional sports, then, something to stick on.
Murdoch doesn't own it anymore, so at least you're going to have some degree of flexibility.
Yeah, so, all things are looking very, very promising, I suppose, in the sim racing world right now. Of course, this has been sort of in the works over the past 10 years, I suppose, if we talk about big antifreeze series. You know, it does take that long sometimes to develop these sorts of partnerships where the innate trust between the two parties is at the level where we can actually show this to a pretty big audience on a normal national TV station, at least in the US. You know, there will come a point perhaps where that becomes global, and that's when we can say that sim racing is for certain here and is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, and the fact that it's you know, one of the biggest cable sports networks in the US as well is such a big thing. So it's not like it's been thrown on some random channel, because there have been sim racing events, for example, in the UK. We've done some stuff before, Motorsports TV, Motors TV as it was named back then. Actually, I will tell you one thing. The first time I remember us having a broadcasted race being shown somewhere, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 2011, 2012, they showed the Indy 500 on the screens at the Speedway, as well as the 2.4 hours of Indianapolis, which essentially back then was a Grand Am race, which I commentated on back in 2012, back when I was a young, new commentator on the iRacing scene.
Back when Will was young and very fresh-faced, I suppose. That must be a long time ago.
And about 3 octaves higher.
Yeah, but side by side, though, we will have a battle for P2 in your Solstice field, though. Alan McCain making his way through on Rick Tarvin, and Jasinski is deciding to join in the fight as well. So just as we were talking about things unrelated to the race, they decide to start up the fights once again here late on in the race. In through turn 1 then for these 3 Solstices battling for position. There's Burton showing that Jetta trying to work his way through. So it seems like every single time these guys get together, it's a case of a bit of a altercation with the traffic that has kind of spoiled things somewhat as Burtonshaw tries to work his way through. I'm just having a look behind to see if there's any more traffic that might come through soon. Stefan Overgaard is not too far behind this one, so he might get himself involved as well. Careful with the Solstices coming through here, because a couple of them have been tracking out very, very wide through turn 5 and 6 and dipping 2 tires into the grass, and we saw exactly what happened to the driver of Lundgren in that Jetta when he did that. So you don't want to be doing that in any of the classes of the cars that you have here today. Good run from Matuszynski, though, 3rd in line, outside line for the final corner. Tarvin will come across to try and cover it off. Back to the inside line he goes to try and defend this one, but Matuszynski has all of the pace, all of the momentum around the outside, and might get 2 of them on the way down into turn 1. Not going to be able to complete the move over McCain coming through here as Tarvin tries to fight back on the inside. Matuszynski's overcooked it a little bit, so from hero to 0 again as he heads his way up through turn 3. That was looking oh so promising.
It was, yeah. Great racing going on. 4.5 minutes remaining in this race, and well, it seems to be that these longer races, Connor, we have a little bit of a lull in the middle where you and I have got to find a way of filling some airtime. Of course, you and I have done breakfast with Will and Connery for so many years now, so we know how to do that. But then all of a sudden we end up with some great racing. Of course, talking about endurance racing, who could forget what happened to Max Verstappen at the 24 Hours of Spa last week?
Yeah, that was both in parts really funny and really unfortunate. I suppose is the way I'll phrase that. Of course, if you're unaware, I think everyone's aware at this point, but just in case you aren't, his pedal snapped coming into the final 20 minutes of the 24 Hours of Le Mans while he was doing the final stint. And almost pinned it into a wall, and then almost sort of had a bit of a moment down into Lecombe, but was able to avoid the barriers in all instances and take the tow back to pit lane, and Lando Norris had to finish things off for that car. But here we go, Alan McCain very wide into the grass, coming up through the exit of turn 1. Here comes Tarvin down the inside at 3, but not able to complete the move. And now Bortle in the Mustang, we've got Lundgren and the Jetta getting themselves involved in this battle, and they'll just have to wait, because this is a battle for P2 and back in your Solstice field. You don't want to be upsetting things here in this particular instance. Just use that straight line speed to get by them and their way through 5 and 6. Ball will do so outside line on the way as you get that elevation change down the hill into that chicane. That's Lundgren making his way by with a fresh engine in that VW Jetta, but Tarvin's overcooked the brakes in towards the chicane, punts the Jetta towards the outside. That's Alan McCain disqualified from this race for the instant limit. And now here comes Maciszynski side by side under the Suzuki bridge, and he gets spun by the Jetta of Lundgren.
Yeah, so we just went to a replay there. We thought that was all over. We're going to start this one then by having a look at Alan McCain. He goes wide down at turn number 1. So he was very close to the incident point limit coming in there. You can see they were very closely as they worked through turn number 3. Alan McCain able to hold on. So we're going to keep it on this replay for a few moments here, Connery. But Alan McCain out of the race. The ink limit, of course, is one of these things that is designed to promote safe driving. So for incidents, for those of you who are new to iRacing, if you go off the track, you get yourself 1 incident point. Main reason for that is you're not driving safely. If you spin the car, you get 2 incident points. If you have contact with another car, it's 3. And there's the start of the issue there. Adam McCain getting contact in towards a bus stop chicane. He's going to be livid with that. Absolutely livid.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no other way to try and phrase that one. Lundgren having a well, at least it was Tarvin initially having a bit of a brain fade, trying to do a move on the brakes. Yeah, I get the overall goal he was going for, try and follow that VW Jetta through on the inside, but just overcooked it a little bit too much. Instead, punts the Jetta in the rear bumper, and of course, the Jetta, not being happy about that one, decides to take it out on a completely unrelated party. It has to be said, under the Suzuki bridges, they went 3 wide under there, so unfortunately has spoiled things somewhat for that particular battle in your Solstices, but it doesn't mean that it's completely and utterly over and done with, because Maciszynski and Melnaritz are still very, very close indeed here, so they might have a bit of a fight coming into the final, I believe 2 laps for them. It depends on where Stefan Overgaard is, and he's coming through the final chicane right now with 42 seconds remaining, so he will be taking the white flag, the last lap this time around for Stefan Overgaard. That is going to be the time that these guys have to sort themselves out for position in your Solstice fields. So they'll come across the line. That means they will get 1 lap to go this next time around. And Melnaritz, well, he's in a pretty good position here. He does have the slipstream to Maciszynski here, but it's just a case of him being able to capitalize on this last lap, get the best final sector that you can, and you might just have a chance at being able to drag yourself up into P3 right at the end of this lap. So final lap going to start now for this battle in your Solstice field. Down towards turn 1, Melnaritz is not going to have an opportunity into here. That is for absolute sure. But if he gets a good run through this turn 1 and a good run through the S's, he might just have an opportunity when it comes to the chicane right at the very end of the lap. But we go forward then to Stefan Overgaard, because absolute dominance is the phrase I will use there. Under the Suzuki bridge, 56 seconds to P2. Overgaard completely untouchable through the final corner. He will win in your Ford Mustang field here today. And then you cycle things back to this battle between Melnaritz and Munoz. They're going to be close into the chicane, but I don't think they're going to be close enough. Jake Johansson in your VW Jettas, he'll head his way under the Suzuki bridge as well. A bit more action in the Jettas, but more action going on elsewhere on the track. Jake Johansson will win in your VW Jettas. Maciszynski and Melnaritz, there's been a bit of an incident between them coming down into the chicane. It was a long way back for Melnaritz. It was a complete and utter send down the inside that hasn't worked out in the most obvious definition of things. Melnaritz disqualified for going over the instant limit through no fault of his own.
Yeah, ironically, it did work for the number 8 car, because here we are on board in towards the corner right now, and you can see number 3 car just Maciszynski being disqualified. Number 8 car slammed it on the brakes and actually was lucky that the number 14 car, who was a lap down of Ben Weed, didn't run into the rear of him. So for Melnaritz, well, mission accomplished, but this is the reason why the first iRacing Sporting Code exists, and this is probably going to be the reason why Nimkos Jr. is going to have some form of a conversation after this one.
Yeah, that's for sure. If I was the driver trying to defend that, I would 100% 10 times out of 10 go for the protest there, and it'll probably end up being successful. That's not the sort of racing that we'd like to see. I sort of flicked my view back away from it because I thought there's absolutely no chance he's going to be able to make a move here into the chicane. Simply way too far back, but decides to go for it anyway, and well, I mean, he's benefiting from it thanks to the DQ, but will probably end up taking a little bit of a break from iRacing, depending on what the situation is on his account with past behavior. But ignoring that fact, we will have your official race results here from the Road Atlanta short course. Stefan Overgaard will win by quite a margin in your Ford Mustang field. 1 minute and 6 seconds back to Roger Gregory. Michael Bortel, Jerome Schuderink, and Michael Boilau will round out your Mustang field here today. And then you look at the Jettas. Jake Johansson wins with Constant Nikari, second step on the podium. Johnny Bell, third step for him. Jason Gardner will miss out there down in P4. Robert Lundgren with late race drama, hitting the wall, engine goes pop, ends up finishing down the field in your Jetta field, and now it's Simon Burtonshaw going to be the last driver classified in Jettas. And then you look at your Solstice field. Sven Demel, what a charge through the pack it was. Gained 9 positions from where he started to win today's race. Rick Tarvin will finish P2, and David Malnaritz will finish in P3, but something tells me that's not going to last all that long. Daniel Ariel Munoz will finish in P4 with Chris Pence in P5. David Friedrich in P6 with Tim Stratman, Maciszynski. You've got Ben Veed, Mika Virta, Alan McCain, and Juan Carlos Fernandez rounding out your 23-car field here today. So that is about it for the racing, and what interesting racing it was. Well, we had a little bit of a lull in the middle of the race, but it seemed like, well, the Jettas early on had a little bit of action to show us, but the Solstice field was definitely the standout for both the right and the wrong reasons here today. Yeah,
it was. The racing always at Road Atlanta is tough. It's a racetrack of very small margins. One thing I will say, Connery, 67-second race lead from Stefan Overgaard to Roger Gregory. That is... we should almost ban Overgaard from taking part in these events. That was so dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. He did have a couple bits of closer competition in earlier rounds of the season when he had the likes of David Haynes, for example, get himself behind the wheel of the car, and a couple of others, of course, as well. But in this particular instance, it seems like he definitely did run away with things today. So basically free R rating, it has to be said, for Stefan Overgaard. We'll actually only gain 13 here. That's how high his R rating is compared to the rest of the Ford Mustangs that signed up to this race. So not getting all that much, but if he did end up having a bit of a moment, then that would be a catastrophic loss. But thankfully for him, that didn't happen, and he's able to gain bit by bit here and there, and able to charge towards the championship in your Mustang field in the Grand Touring Cup.
Yep, you can hear that music. It is the soundtrack to the Porsche Esport Super Cup. We are back on air tomorrow, and the big story coming into this one is, Connery, Max Benecke 9 points behind Josh Rogers, but, and this is a big but, will be suspended from qualifying at arguably his best track of the season.
Yeah, that is absolutely huge. So Max Benecke, I've called him the master of the Nürburgring on so many occasions, and this is the time now where he absolutely has to prove it. I don't think he'll be able to, under any normal circumstances, able to make that gap any closer to P1. But if he can mitigate the damage tomorrow in terms of the points deficit that he'll inevitably be finishing at unless something catastrophic happens to Joshua Rogers, then he might just be able to keep himself in contention for the final 2 races of the season. You also can't count out Mitchell de Jong here either. He is quite a bit adrift in terms of the point situation here, but if Joshua Rogers or Maxime Beneke have bad races over the next 3, then he might be in a position to be able to capitalize on their mistakes as well. So things are certainly heating up in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Nürburgring tomorrow, and then in the future weeks we have WebTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and then the final round at Autodromo Nazionale Monza to finish off the season. What a finale that would be, but we still need to set the stage and start the dress rehearsals.
Yeah, and you can see the standings up on your screen right now. Beneke 9 points behind Josh Rogers. Mitchell de Jong 3rd place, 93 points back. Sebastian Job 4th place, 109 back. The thing that gets me here in this standings graphic, and I have to say that I didn't make this, it was someone who I'm going to keep nameless. Sebastian Job has a Union flag in his name. Jamie Fluke has a Union flag next to his name. Graham Carroll has a Scottish flag, so evidently someone at iRacing has already done the voting for Scottish Independence Referendum 2 and made Graham Carroll a separate country.
Yeah, I have to wonder, because we were discussing this before the broadcast, Will. I was born in Wales. I created my account while still living in Wales. I have to wonder, if I was racing in that series, whether they'd put a Welsh flag on for me rather than a British one. I am not sure what the answer is in that situation, but it could have been the case that Graham Carroll wanted a Scottish flag on the graphics and actually petitions the person responsible beforehand to be able to get that done. So yeah, we will never know, but it is what it is.
Can I just say, by the way, you've got the least Welsh accent of anyone in Wales I've ever heard of.
It comes out a lot more when I'm not commentating and when I'm emotional in terms of extremes of emotion. So whether I'm really angry or really whatever, it comes out then, but I have a very generic accent otherwise.
Do you like omelettes?
Do I like what?
Omelettes.
Omelettes?
Yes.
Yeah, they're alright.
There you are. You're Welsh enough.
I don't know how that qualifies me to be Welsh.
Watch Gavin and Stacey.
Okay. That's alright for I'm not getting, but on that note, that's going to be the time that we get to end this broadcast. Thank you very, very much for joining us. That was round 7 at Road Atlanta for the iRacing Grand Touring Cup, but that is not by any means all the racing done here for the weekend on RaceSpot TV. Don't forget that we have the Porsche Esports Super Cup tomorrow, 2 p.m. GMT. It's going to be myself, Will Vincent, and of course Paul Smith going to be involved with the broadcast for that one. It's certainly one that you do not want to miss by any means. So make sure you mark it in your calendars. Make sure you set your alarms if you tend to sleep in, and we'll see you then.